The commitments, they just keep coming and coming, and they're on a torrid pace right now. What's going to stop the staff from just continuing to hit home runs on the recruiting trail? We'll get into that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On BC, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege and they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. All right, folks. I was going into today's episode earlier today. I was like, what am I going to talk about? Recruiting seems to be slowing down. The official visit schedule is starting to ease up a little bit. But I was out with my son at the park and boom, I get a text from Mike Roach of 247 Texas. He's like, dude, Shay, you're about to get a commitment from defensive back Ashton McShane. All right, there we go. Whip out my computer, write that one up. Then you also get the news, boom. You got to defend. As I'm putting my other child to bed, I get a text that Cam Gwinn, who is committed to Toledo, has also committed to BC. So 2 in a day again. I feel like this is a theme. I had to I went back to last Monday's episode. I was like, okay, I got to make sure I don't write the same title because on Monday's show, we talked about 2 commitments. Well, on Wednesday's show, we're talking about 2 commitments. BC is now up to 12 commitments. That is 11 in the month of June. Hey, AJ hit his mark. I've said all along, if you've been following on this and on the site, the Eagles would add at least 10 commitments in June. They're at 11 right now. Put a little of that green check mark next to my name. Nostradamus is here. I nailed that one. Well, let's get into the first commitment. I'm not here just to pump my, make myself feel good. I could do that sometimes because sometimes I feel like I'm an idiot, and the other days I feel like I know what I'm talking about, right? So let's get into Ashton McShane. Ashton McShane is a defensive back. I think he's the 4th defensive back BC's landed already in this class. And folks, they're not done there yet. It's still going on. McShane is from Mckinney, Texas. Okay. And he's 6 feet, 5'11". He's listed on 247. 6 feet if you ask him. I don't know. We'll have to get a measuring stick out and measure him, right? He had offers from Kansas State and Indiana. He had some good solid offers. BC was his only official visit at this point, which does, I'm not going to say that's the only thing, right? But it does mean something, right? He's a 3-star, so not bad. I think he was rated an 85. He is going to be, a corner. He's your typical corner. So some of the guys that BC have landed already. Desmond Stevens, the kid that BC nailed over Purdue and Louisville. He's going to be a safety. Charlie Camella from Zavarian Brothers. I think of him more of as a project. I think they're going to try to figure out what they can do with him. So he's not going to be that go-to corner. You also have, I'm already blanking on the other guy's name. They have a couple. Christian Zamore, same thing. And we haven't heard much from Christian Zamore lately. Curious where that's going. Sometimes kids that are committed, they take their official visit. He has not. So curious what's going on with that situation. But he's also another guy I would project as a project. I look at Ashton McShane and say, okay, you now have your first defensive back that kind of fits into that role that Jeff Hafley has done year after year, which is true freshmen that are just ready to jump in. And it doesn't have to be always at cornerback. You saw that with Clinton Burton Jr., Josh Cheek, Jalen Cheek played a little bit. Last year, we saw Amari Jackson. And this year, you're going to see KP Price and Carter Davis probably playing. All of these guys are true freshmen. Hafley has a knack, and Nazar Abdul Rahim have a knack for finding those guys that could just jump in and provide depth. He doesn't have to start right away, but I see McShane as potentially a guy that competes right away. And I'm curious. I didn't ask him if he's going to come, enroll mid-year. That's more down the road. The kid's a junior still, and on his way to his senior year. But he wouldn't surprise me if this is a kid that comes in early, probably looks at potentially playing, and there you go. That's the guy that I would watch for. That's the guy I think may play immediately. Now, a few thoughts here before we move on to our second guy. First of all, does this mean BC is done at defensive back? Folks, I am the host of Locked On BC, but I am also the Eagle Insider, right? That's my site, and I kind of taken on the moniker myself. Talk to the kids. I talk to the staff. This is not it for defensive back. Lloyd Irvin, who was just on campus last week. This is a kid that was checking out Wisconsin, Rutgers, and I think I don't have the other school in front of me right in front. Maryland. That's the other school he's looking at. He is someone I think BC, I'm not ready to put a crystal ball in, but the way things are falling at Wisconsin, where they're getting other guys, he could be a guy that BC commits to. There's Exodus Ayers, who I have a crystal ball with him going to Oregon State, but I'm not 100% sure on that one yet. I'll have to continue to looking at it. So the staff's not done there yet. I think there's a chance that BC still grabs one more defensive back for this class, and we'll have to wait to see what that looks like. We'll have to see if they do, or if there's changes or things that goes on. That's going to be something worth watching. Now, the other piece that I continually find interesting is with all the belly aching that we hear about BC not getting all the kids in Massachusetts, which there has been talent. And I mean, gosh, we could have a whole episode on the quarterback situation going on in Massachusetts, because there's been some real talented kids that, are going elsewhere. But Hafley has put together a strategy that I kind of dig, and that's going into the state of Texas. And in this show, we have said Texas high school football is crazier than BC football. It is a cult down there. That it's the lifeblood of Texas. So they get super talents from down there. There's lots of talent down there. And so in the past year, Hafley has hired Darrell Wyatt at wide receivers coach, who is a former Texas Longhorns coach who has deep roots down there. We've already seen him land 2 wide receivers from Texas. Now we have McShane, another guy from McKinney High School, which I believe I've heard is a really good high school in Texas. I have to admit, I'm not into high school football other than a few schools I know about. This is a smart strategy. If you can get good talent from Texas, instead of wasting your time on Massachusetts kids that are hearing from their coaches that BC stinks, because that's what they hear, go for it. Go down to Texas, bring these kids up, because the difference that you get, I can tell you, the kids from Massachusetts all know about BC football. They all know about the struggles of this program. They know about the old coaching staffs they didn't like, the coaching staff from their high school didn't like Spazio or Spaz, whatever. You're fighting uphill there, right? You bring them on for official visit. They're like, oh, cool, Boston, really? We've already seen Boston. We live right around the corner. You're already fighting a losing battle. You bring a kid up from Texas who's got NFL dreams, that has the feel for wanting to go to a city, and you take them on a tour of Boston, that is a much easier sell than the kid that lived in Needham or the kid that goes to Zavarian Brothers or wherever, because they're already here. You get a better bang for your buck by going after these Texas kids. And you're not going to get the elites. I'm not saying BC is going to get the elites, but you got Keontae Henry already. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But in the second segment, I'm going to talk about a flip that BC landed from a MAC school, but I think this guy's going to have some interesting attributes, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our good old friends over at Bird Dogs. If you've been listening to this show, you're probably, you're well aware of how much I love my new Bird Dog shorts. I have people going, man, AJ, you really do talk. You live the life. You talk the talk about Bird Dog. And I do, because I find them so comfortable. They're so multidimensional. They do everything that I want my shorts to do. And so they're slim. They make me look good. I have to tell you, this weekend I had my daughter's second birthday. I wore my Bird Dogs for our party for her. I wore them while I was grilling. And I got compliments twice from family members. They were like, wow, those shorts look great on you, AJ. No lie. That's exactly what they said. And I talked to them about it. They're like, what are those? I'm like, it's Bird Dog. So you need to go check out Bird Dog too, so you can get the compliments like I just did. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Locked On BC, AJ Black here, and we are talking Cruton. And we are getting into our second commitment of the day. As I said in our last segment, my day was busy. I had one child with me all day, and I kept having to step away because I kept getting news alerts that I had to deal with. Now, 2 days ago, I talked to Cam Gwinn, who was headed to Boston College on an official visit. He was, of all the recruits that BC had coming on campus for official visits, the biggest surprise, because I had no idea who this guy was. You know, Judah Pruitt, who ended up committing to BC earlier this week, who was at Rutgers, I knew him. I had talked to him before. That wasn't a big surprise that he would come because I know he had a good relationship with the staff. Now, Cam Gwinn, I had no clue who he was. I had to look him up. I'm like, who is this guy? He was committed to Toledo. He was coming to BC without an offer, which is kind of weird on an official visit. Most times guys that are coming for official visit have at least an offer. Cause as you guys have seen on Twitter, right? Like BC throws out like 400 offers a year. Like everyone has a BC offer, but this guy didn't. It was interesting. So he comes on campus without an offer. On Saturday, all of a sudden he gets his offer. Within like a half hour, he decommits from Toledo. And then, the bells on my head's going crazy because I'm like, okay, throw in a crystal ball for this guy. If that's what's happening, he's going to commit. I hold off. I take a breath. I talk to the staff. You're like, no, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling good about it, whatever. So I talked to Cam on Sunday night. And he tells me, yeah, I'm feeling good about it. I'm making my decision at the end of the week or this week at some time. When that has happened, when you read an interview, if you go over to 247, if you have not subscribed yet, 50% off right now. I have been going crazy putting out tons of VIP info. If you read my interview with Gwen, you would have known that. And that's like, the shining beacon of commitments right there. Right. So I didn't do my diligence and ask him that. I should have asked him, but I put a crystal ball in. I put a crystal ball in for Gwen, and this afternoon he commits. It was like bang, bang, bang. Like he goes on his official visit, decommits from Toledo, gets an offer from BC, and commits to BC. So what is BC getting here? Because you look at him, you look at his size, and you're like, what is he? He's a defensive lineman, but he's 6'2", 255. So he's too short, in my opinion, to be an edge rusher, unless you're going to get a kind of like freaky size one. He's too small physically, like weight wise, to be a defensive tackle. So what's he going to be? Well, I asked Cam. Cam says defensive tackle, which makes sense. Like you can't add height to a guy. You can't make a guy to be an edge like 6'5", and if they're 6'2", right? But we've seen lots of 6'2" defensive tackles. Like Boozy was 6 feet tall. He was like 300 pounds. So what you do, you bring the kid in. He redshirts his freshman year. He puts on good college weight. You don't want him just to eat nachos and chicken, late night at lower to put on that pound of weight. I mean, if I went back there and ate lower all week, I would get to that weight. But You want him to work with Phil Matus, the strength and conditioning coach, get him up to college weight. And at 6'2", and you get him to about 290, 300 pounds, boom, you've got your defensive tackle. He also said, though, that he could be a guy that they look at to situationally put in at defensive end. So maybe he's more of a lighter weight defensive tackle. Guy like George Rooks is the one I think of, the transfer from Michigan who came in this year. Rooks kind of plays that middle role. Like, you look at his size and you're like, is he a defensive end? Is he a tackle? He's kind of both. He does, if it's a pass rushing situation and you want him in, you can put him in there, but mostly he's a defensive tackle, right? I think that's what Gwen's going to be. So this is the first defensive lineman BC has landed. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's the last. I think there's at least one or two, possibly three more moves coming in for that defensive line position. So in our final segment, I'm going to go into what's left. BC's at 12. I'll tell you how many commitments I think this class is going to take, and we'll get into what they need to do with those last couple offers, last couple commitment slots. We'll get into that in just a moment. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black, and I want to tell you about a special show that you need to check out. I don't want you to miss our Locked On NBA Draft live on Thursday night. Pick-by-pick analysis from our stable of local NBA hosts, national reaction from our NBA Big Board hosts, and live check-ins from inside the NBA Draft. Locked On NBA Drafts live starting at 7:30 Eastern Time on the Locked On NBA YouTube page. And also, if you are an everydayer, if you listen to us every day, thank you so much. I've had so much fun. June has been so much fun talking about when you get these commitments. This is like my bread and butter, so I can tell you my passion, tell you what I know. It's been a really interesting ride getting to see how this class of 24 has kind of shaped, because as I said on Twitter, June 1st this year, Boston College was at one commitment. That was Christian Zamore, who was committed in January of 2022. It has been a barren desert since then. But since then, BC has added 11 commitments. So they've hit a bunch, right? Defensive backs, they've got 4. They've got 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. What comes next? Where is BC currently at? They're 49th in the country in recruiting rankings. And let me tell you, as someone from 247, they jumped from 94th, I believe it was at the beginning of this month, to 49th. And I still think they could jump up more. Now, if the ranking is based on, I believe, the composite rankings, which is like taking Rivals and On3 and ESPN and then just taking all those rankings and smushing them together to get a ranking for a kid. So each guy has like their 247 ranking and their composite ranking. It gives you kind of two different ideas of how the industry looks at him versus our site. Well, there's at least 4 guys on BC's roster or commitment list right now that don't have a composite ranking. That kind of brings their score down. Now, I'll tell you, as the guy who covers BC, I've just reached out to get all those guys scored. So don't be surprised that once they are scored, if that rating goes back up even more. So I think that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Now, class size. I think a lot of folks want to know, like, is BC going to go for 25 again? Are they going to go for a huge class? So I've talked to the staff. I've talked to a couple of different guys. I don't expect them to go for 25 this year. I don't think it's going to happen. Because of the transfer portal, I think they're going to try to keep it, maybe like 17 guys and then keep some spots open for transfers. And I think that's smart, right? Like, I think that's what everyone has been asking BC to do. Like, get the recruits, but also keep yourself open for transfer portal guys. So BC's at 12. They have 5 more slots. It can change too, obviously. But where do they go for? Well, first of all, as we said on 2 episodes ago, there's a spot open for quarterback, and it's Henry Hasselbeck if he takes it. If he doesn't take it, that goes back into the pile. They're not going to get another quarterback if it's not Hasselbeck. I'm telling you right now, unless there's some guy that comes out of camps or something that they're just like, whoa, Hasselbeck is it. They're going to say that Castellanos is the guy for this class. And the funky way things have worked with recruiting and transfer portals, you just got to kind of reimagine how things are. It's no longer the old style of you need a class of 23, a class of 22, a class of 21. It doesn't work like that. How many guys end up leaving programs within those 4 years? It just doesn't work that way anymore. So that could be a situation. I think one could possibly go for a running back. If DeJuan Williams of St. Francis Academy does commit to BC, they'll take him. That'll be 2 running backs. I think there's at least 2 spots for offensive linemen still coming up. You're looking at guys like Chris Leno, who is between BC and Washington State. You're looking at CJ Williams, who I have a crystal ball. And for both of these guys, I have crystal balls. And Williams, I'm feeling even better about. From Deerfield Academy in Massachusetts, he's an offensive tackle. And then there's Gerby Lambert. No matter what the numbers are at, Gerby Lambert's going to have a spot on this team if he takes it. So I don't even consider him in the pile because he's just like, he is like that, when Indiana Jones goes into the temple and there's the golden thing that he tries to take and he puts the sand down, whatever, that like light on him is like Gerby Lambert. Right. So I think he's going to be a potential guy. And then there's defensive line. Jason Flint of Pennsylvania is a guy to watch for. And DeAndre Cook, who's going to be on campus this weekend. There's all crystal balls to him to Penn State, but who knows? Like, he has a visit. Maybe something blows him away. I don't think he'll end up here, but he's someone worth watching. And then finally, I was expecting BC to take 3 tight ends. There's a potential that Syer Torrance from New York, who's also going to be on campus this week, midweek visits, by the way, folks, he's going to be checking out BC. They're his last visit, which I love. I love hearing that because when you have a competitive guy that come in last, it's that recency bias, right? Like maybe he will end up here. So those are all the guys that we're looking at. I think, and defensive back. Lloyd Irvin is the other one. I think there will be a spot for him if they want it. So we'll have to see how all these kind of shuffle out and how they end up. But there's a couple different positions, as you can see, many of them where BC still has like one guy here, one guy here, one guy here. But they have, you want to see like offensive line really fill out. You want to see the defensive line fill out. Trenches are always so important. And then the other guys, we'll see where the balls fall. So on Friday, we'll have more recruiting news because it just seems to never stop. I have more. If there isn't news, I'll tell it like this, because if there's news, it kind of takes over everything, right? But on Friday, if there's not, the Locked On Network did their polls of the ACC season. I'm going to go into some of the results of that. We'll go over a visual cue of all that. And if you have not done so already, make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. And again, plug before you go. 247 right now. Go to Eagle Insider. 50% off an annual subscription. I had 5 items today. I had 4 items yesterday. I am just going crazy with recruiting news. You can sign up for a cup of coffee a month. Go over there, sign up today, become a member. It's great. We have a great community over there. I'd love to see more Locked On fans over there too. Make sure to sign up. You'll get all the insider information that I have. You have Mitch over there. It is awesome. So check us out there. Thank you all so much. We've had a great community today here on our show. We'll be back again on Friday. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot.